We'll just Airbnb it. We'll just Airbnb it. We're just gonna Airbnb it. I hear this from two different kinds of buyers. One is the buyer who realizes that because everything is so expensive now, that they have to come up in price, so they're gonna be buying a home that's more than they expected, so they will just Airbnb the home or some of the rooms in the home so that they can afford the now higher mortgage than they were expecting. Or you hear it from people who are not ready to move here yet, and so they'll just Airbnb it until they're ready to move in. It makes sense, right? Because Airbnb is so easy, said no one who's ever actually run an Airbnb. I'm going to give you the no BS Casey Roman experience of running a very profitable, to be fair, very profitable Airbnb, which I did in the Babe Cave a couple years ago, and tell you exactly what it's like behind the scenes, because there's the Airbnb marketing, which will show you pictures and videos like this. Don't they look so happy? That will never happen. Nobody is ever standing at the edge of their stoop with their arms open waiting for... The only time I ever stood at the edge of my doorway with my arms open was when I was hoping I'd get paid for the 3 days of hell they just gave me. That doesn't actually happen. Airbnb, when Airbnb started, which actually does have ties to Wilmington, the core idea was lovely. It was that you would go to a city that you had never been in before, and you would get this host experience where you would stay in their home and you would meet local people, and they could tell you all the things that you couldn't get in a hotel, and it'd be so much cheaper than a hotel. And now, because investors have gotten the game and so many people other people, just regular homeowners, have gotten in the game, it is not really, unless you have a lot of people staying in one house or in one apartment, it is not cheaper than a hotel by any stretch of the imagination. And a lot of times you'll never even see the host. But we're going to talk about what it's like to be a host, because before you just anything, you really need to know what it's just like actually, okay? And what you are just doing when you have an Airbnb is you just got a full-time job that you weren't planning on, or you just started a business. And if you don't think it's a business, I can assure you, I can testify that the IRS does think it's a business. And that's because if you are booking out your Airbnb for anything more than 14 days of the year, then all kinds of rules kick in for you as far as what the IRS considers just this little side hobby that you're doing versus running a business. If your rentals are shorter than 7 days, which most people's are, a lot of guests stay from like Friday to Sunday, then anything less than 7 days, well, that's not considered a rental. That's considered a lodging business. That's Schedule C, that's self-employment tax, that's you need to get an accountant. That's what you need to do. I'm not an accountant, but I'll tell you, once you start an Airbnb, you're going to need one, and one who's savvy on real estate. But let's go back to the whole thing about now you've just created a full-time job for yourself, because of everything, that is the part about running an Airbnb that I think most people don't quite get. Once you get your listing up, and that's not terribly complicated, you are forever tied to your phone. Because now you have to manage all your bookings. And if you're in an area that is very popular, like Wilmington, North Carolina, at the beach, or pretty much, anywhere else that's desirable, you will have to manage all those reservations. Now, I'm giving you this lowdown, assuming that you're not hiring a full-time company or property manager to do all this for you. Now, you can do that, but you're not going to make as much money because you have to give most of it to the property manager. That's the only way that Airbnb or VRBO is passive income. I love when people say that about Airbnb. There's nothing passive about running a lodging operation. It's passive if you're paying someone else to do all the work. If you're paying someone else to do all the work, you're not making the kind of money you thought, and then after taxes, you're really not making anything else. So what was the point, right? Did you just want to be that person on the stoop with your arms stretched out? No, you want to make some money. We all want to make some money, pay our mortgages, right? You're going to have to manage your reservations all the time. You're going to have to respond to questions and feedback, and the most obvious things you will need to answer where they are. Like, I can't find the coffee pot. Have you checked the kitchen counter? Where's the extra toilet paper? Right next to the toilet. Where's the closest Chinese restaurant? Let me tell you about this new thing called Google. All the time. You will always need to be by your phone. Bookings, scheduling people to come in and out, well, that seems really self-explanatory, right? On the app, you set your check-in and check-out times. Guests may check in within this range. Mine was 4 p.m. until 10 p.m. And then they could hard check out at 12, so I had time to clean the unit and get it ready for the next people. Those are like yellow lights on the road. They're suggestive. People will show up whenever they feel like showing up. You will put 4 p.m. for check-in time, and I promise you it will happen at least once, if not a couple times, that at 8:30 in the morning, when you're on the way to work or whatever else you're doing that day, you will get a phone call that says, "Hey, we got here early. Can we check in early?" What are you going to do? Are you going to come back from work and let them in? Are you going to tell them to leave their stuff on the porch? I mean, this is the check-in and check-out times that will always be ignored. People will check out late. And the point is that you're going to have to manage all that. People think that you're like in the garden, meddling with your herbs, just waiting for them to arrive, because while it used to be this wholesome host experience, people now expect it to act like a hotel, because most Airbnbs are as expensive, if not more expensive, than a hotel. You are not ye old innkeeper. You are ye old maid, butler, private investigator, travel agent, and therapist. It's a full-time job. Plus, you've now got to manage all those cleanings, and cleanings have to happen pretty quick, especially if you are in a very desirable area like the beach, and you're going to have one group coming in and the other group coming out, and how are you going to do all those cleanings? And so what I found running mine was that, because I ran mine like a brothel, a well-run brothel, I had people coming in and out because I like money. That's why. But I had to dedicate all this time to taking down the sheets and washing the sheets and taking out the garbage and cleaning up whatever mess was left and like getting everything back in stock and all that. And so what you will find is, if you run a busy or active Airbnb that you're just going to do just to make a little bit of money, is that you are going to be somewhat tied to the property unless you pay someone to do all that for you. The cleanings take a lot of time, and if you don't keep the unit really clean, I promise you they will get on the internet and write you a review that will keep you from getting future business. So it is a full-time job. Like I said, you can make a lot of money. I'm more than paid my mortgage every month in the summer on Airbnb, but you can also make a lot of money selling drugs. This is why it's important to just soul search your goals and what you're just going to do, and make sure that it fits your personality, that it fits the way you want to live, and that it's legal. As Abraham Lincoln once said, hell is other people. And that is the truest thing when it comes to running an Airbnb and VRBO. And I will caution you, side note, that if you're going to do both, which is what I did, I had it on both listings, you need to manage both those calendars, because if you double book, which people do more than you think, they have a reservation here and they forget to mark it off on Airbnb, you'll have two guests there thinking they have somewhere to stay. It's not going to be good for you. But hell is other people. For the most part, you will have good guests. You will. But you're not going to remember those people, because all you will remember are the turds who stayed in your home and wrecked it. That's all you're going to remember. I did get to meet people from all over the world, and I had some great families and couples and mother-daughters stay there, and some of them I still talk to today. And so that was really nice. And I will say that when you make a lot of effort to make your home beautiful and you get to share it with other people, and they come in, and my home was an old Victorian downtown, and they just think that's so cool because they've never seen one, and they ask you if it's haunted, and for a while you say no, and then you realize that they kind of want it to be haunted, so you start making up stories about ghosts and dead people in there just to like satisfy them. It's fun. That part can be fun. But like I said, that will all be overshadowed by the inevitable. And this is not a if it happens, it's a when. okay? Because those people could be staying in a hotel and they're coming to stay with you, but you're getting the same population, and the same people who wreck hotels are going to wreck your home. So there's a couple things that you can do to guest proof your house. Like, number one, when I first started my listing, I got the nicest luxury hotel towels, like those big fluffy, like, oh, I just wanted them to be so comfortable. Those people, some of them, I found dyeing their hair with those clean white towels, washing their car, using them as beach towels. They'd be thrown all over the place at the end of the stay. And that's when I discovered Walmart towels. They are $1.68 at Walmart. You can just throw them away as they destroy them. I got little baskets of toiletries, like floss and toothpaste and lotion and shampoo, and like just in case you forgot. And then I'd say within a month, at least a couple guests would just take the whole thing with them. The whole thing, they just take it with them. Do not let your guests anywhere near the thermostat. That's going to be really hard to do if you're renting out the whole house. But either get a digital thermostat that you can monitor, or get one of those plastic boxes. I need to fix my bra strap. This just happens. It's part of being a woman. There we go. Get one of those plastic cases with a key and just put in your listing that this is the temperature that the house is set at. And if that doesn't work for them, that they need to go somewhere else. Here's why. If you give them, if their little paws can access the buttons, your thermostat will be set at all kinds of temperatures, especially if you're living together like I did, where I was in one half of the house and they were in the other. You'll have people that hate air conditioning. I don't know why. But your home will be 89 degrees in the summer because they don't want it on. And you have to accommodate them because you want their money and their nice review. Then you have other people that want it 55 degrees in the summer at nighttime. When you come home sometimes, you will see the doors and windows wide open in the middle of the summer with the air conditioning rocking because they are trying to cool all of North Carolina. Watching your utilities is part of the full-time job aspect of running an Airbnb, because nobody loves your stuff and will treat your home as good as you will. And since they're not paying the utility bill, it doesn't matter. 45-minute showers? Sure. 2 baths a day? Why not? Running the air conditioner at whatever temperature they feel like? Yeah, it doesn't matter. You're doing this to make money, so just protect your utilities quite a bit. That you will thank me for that. You will have people who will show up and come back in the middle of the night. Just be prepared for that. You will have couples who are on vacation who will have the loudest possible vacation sex in your home, like the loudest possible, as though they're expecting a standing ovation from your entire neighborhood after. In a house like mine that was built in 1910, there's no insulation in the wall. So I would start every greeting of a guest by making eye contact, and always make eye contact and maintain eye contact and never show fear, and say, in 1910, they didn't have insulation in the walls. It's going to happen, and then the next day you've got to change those sheets. I went and bought those like latex medical gloves because I'm not touching that. Ew. I had guests sneak in other guests. I had guests come back from the bars bringing like a whole tribe of people. I would have people book a mother-son trip, and I won't reenact the noise, but I'm going to confirm that that was not her son. That was like her weekend fling or affair. And I had one guest who booked my Airbnb in my home where I was living because he needed to detox from drugs. And like, why not do it at my place? And then he ripped all of the blinds off the windows. Hell is other people. The only way that you keep making money on Airbnb is you get really good reviews and you get enough of them. So like everything else that we buy now, people see that you have a lot of good reviews, you become a super host, then you start getting lots and lots of business. That's what we all want, right? You have to manage your level and their level of spite in the reviews. I've noticed that most hosts will write very good reviews about guests, and that doesn't really do a whole lot of service to other hosts because then you don't know when they're booking on your property. But people tend to write these really vanilla reviews. Not if you stayed at my house. If you stayed at my house, I came for your throat. If you were a bad guest after, I just think that that keeps the community honest. And it was fun. It was fun to take out all of my rage after having to listen to that loud vacation sex and then stealing all my toiletries. It's what motivates me. Spite. But you really do need to make every effort possible to get good reviews. And the best way to do that is have interaction with your guests. Every single guest that stayed at my house, if I wasn't there to check them in, then I would come up afterwards, or at some point I would try to make contact with them at least once a day while they were there. If not in person, then on the phone. Do you need anything? How is everything? Just saying hi, like, hey, there's this thing going on in Wilmington today if you are looking for an activity. But it's really hard once you establish a relationship with somebody to then go on the internet and take out all your grievances. And I just find that if you make the effort to communicate with them and establish a relationship, then usually you don't get bad reviews. I never got any bad reviews. I mean, obviously. But people sometimes write just ridiculous reviews, and you're just gonna have to learn not to take it personally. Like, I had one girl write that the house was dated. Well, honey, the house was built in the early 1900s and was decorated period appropriate as a Victorian home. So I'm not quite sure. Millennials can be hateful. Or I had another guy who, now correct me if I'm wrong, but the area behind the toilet, that open space that does nothing but hold the tank cover, that's a no-fly zone. Whatever's over there, that is for decoration. You don't touch it, you don't use it, nothing like that. I put this beautiful plaster thing of potpourri and decorative soaps, beautiful decorative soaps. Yeah, they were so pretty. But it's in the no-fly zone. And they're decorative, they're carved, they're shaped like, Victorian things. So they were just there for decoration. Well, that ding dong took the decorative soaps because he couldn't possibly have been supplied enough by the giant bag of toiletries I supplied and the soap in the shower. And he took the soap behind the toilet and used it to wash his face and body in the shower, and it burned his eyeballs, which I thought was hilarious because karma works. He then proceeded to write a negative review about my horrible soap. I mean, I hope that it blinded him for at least a little bit of time because it was absurd. But just stuff like that, you're not going to be able to totally avoid that. So just try to keep in touch with your guests. And no, this all goes back to just starting an Airbnb. Like, how much free time do you have? Now, you can just put in one of those digital locks. That's what I did. I put in a digital lock so they could let themselves in and out. And I put Arlo security cameras up so that I could make sure that I knew exactly who was on the property. And then maybe you never see your guests. But just a pro tip, for good reviews, really try to give them the host experience if you can. And you can only imagine what the Casey Roman experience is like. Side note on those digital locks, they are really helpful. I would not recommend giving out keys. Keys will disappear. They will go with your guests back on their planes and the cars and all that. But even though it's really easy to punch in 4 numbers and then pound, for some of your guests, it will be like asking them to solve the Da Vinci Code. And that's why you just have to always have your phone on you, because even if it is 1, 2, 3, 4 pound, they will still not be able to figure it out. And they will need you to answer the phone right away. Know that Airbnb and VRBO are seasonal, especially here at the beach. It's seasonal. When people talk about how much money they make on Airbnb, you always hear a unicorn story. You hear like, oh, well, I have a friend and he had an apartment and he rented out and he made $3,000 in 1 month and it was so easy and everything was great. But like, that is a snapshot of being an Airbnb host if you do it for extended periods of time. So it's easy to talk about the times when we make a ton of money. I could very easily talk about my best month on Airbnb. I made over $2,000. It was wonderful. But that doesn't tell you about the other months. After October here at the beach, I didn't have any bookings. And it was a long time, and I had a couple scattered things, but you're not going to make that kind of unicorn income throughout the year. And so don't blow all the money. You really need to prepare for the downtimes, and that all goes back to running a business. So if you are going to buy a home on the assumption that Airbnb will pay your mortgage because you've heard about how much money everyone makes, just know that that's not guaranteed. Like running any business, it's not guaranteed month to month. So on the good months, save some money away if you're using it to pay your mortgage or your utilities, and then use it to buffer some of those slower months or the times where people cancel their reservations last minute and you can't get somebody else in there. That money's going to come in handy. But there are ups and downs like anything else, and especially with things like COVID, a lot of people had bookings back to back and then it all went away. So it's not guaranteed income. All right, that's sort of the nitty-gritty of what it's actually like to run an Airbnb. But I'll tell you the one thing that made running mine saner than it was, because once it got really busy in the spring for me, it just became unmanageable, and I was chained to the house and chained to the phone, and I was dealing with all kinds of guests who were making my life very difficult. The one thing that changed all of that was I made just a one-sheet piece of paper that said, "Welcome to the Folks Gibson house," and then it had a list of house rules. And I know that may sound archaic and like overbearing, but once you start hosting, you'll understand what I mean. I just made rules of all the expectations at the house. You will not bother the neighbors. If you live in a beautiful historic neighborhood, your guests may walk around in the other yards thinking this is like a free museum tour. No to that. You will not bring other people back to the apartment or the home unless they are on the reservation. You will not trash the place. If you do, here's the cleaning fee. You will not steal towels. And I made every single thing that I had encountered. I made this list, and then I wrote next to each item the exact amount of the damages that they would be charged off of their deposit if they broke that rule. And then it was the first thing they got when they showed up, and then every single person on that reservation had to sign it. Mom, dad, husband, wife, the kids, the pets. I'm just kidding. I would not let animals in my Airbnb. That did not happen. But everybody on the reservation had to sign that. And I found that when I made it very clear that these were my expectations and that there were exact consequences for that, everything got so much easier. Everything. We all like to assume that people are going to act like we do. I don't wear shoes in the house because I wasn't raised in a barn. Maybe by wolves, but not in a barn. Most people are not going to do that. So if you have things that are important to you, whoa, too much side shoulder showing, then write them down and write the consequences and make it very clear, and also submit that paperwork to Airbnb so that if there's ever a dispute, it's in your documentation. Better yet, send it to your guests before they even get there and make them sign it and send it back to you. And that way, once they get there, you can put on the charm and the smile and be just lovely, but you let them know the business. I don't know that I would ever do it again, period. I might do it for like small periods of time. But I will tell you, as a real estate agent in Wilmington, North Carolina, one of the biggest demands we have right now is people who cannot find a house because there's so few for sale right now, or their home isn't finished building, or whatever the reason is, and they need a short-term rental. I got extremely burnt out on Airbnb and VRBO. Their money was great, but I wanted to every weekend go tamper with the carbon monoxide detector and take a walk, because those deaths are really tragic and unexplainable. It just became too much. It was too much. So I transferred that to doing short-term rentals, and my life got a lot easier. I didn't make as much money, but I still made really great money because furnished short-term rentals are in very high demand, and you can charge an awful lot of rent. And the great thing about short-term rentals is that they're not there for such a small period of time that if they trash the place, they want to live in their mess for another 2 months. But they're not there long enough that you're going to come home like to a rental and they'll have adopted 3 feral cats and there's 3 litter boxes, or they've got the boyfriends and girlfriends coming to live with them and all that. They need a bridge. And maybe they're people who are between leases, something like that. But there is a huge demand for that. And so if you don't think that having a full-time job as an Airbnb host or this whole other business, or if you just don't think you're going to want that many strangers in your space, then that's something to consider. And I promise you, reach out to me or any other real estate agent. I take that back. Don't go to any other real estate agent. Why would you? I'm right here. and tell them that you've got a short-term rental option, and we will fill it. The people who succeed using Airbnb are people who treat it like a business. The people who take their guest room and throw some wicker furniture in there, and every morning you wake up and their cat's butthole is right in front of your face, those people tend to not do as well. So if you're going to do it, take some time, read through all the guidelines, read through the standards. There are very specific standards to become an Airbnb host now. Interview some hosts, not just me, about what worked for them, what didn't, what they do different. Interview accountants and get yourself a really good accountant, and then invest in the highest quality earplugs you can find for that first night when you book some newlyweds.